Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest, greatest, updated episode of the Clutch Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Klinger. The Clutch Podcast, where shift happens. Today, we're going to try to go through a dialogue and have a conversation around shifting a mindset that employers and organizations might want to take heed to. Where am I going with this? What's the process I'm talking about? Well, first and foremost, Season 1, Episode 3, the risk of employing bad bosses. Why does this come up? Comes up for two reasons. One, recently, HR Bamboo took a report and shared the impact of a bad boss, right? It came out as the hostile, the unfair, and the toxic, the bad boss index of 2025. Right? So, I have a passion for management and leadership development. And if any of you that know me, that have been a part of my journey, that have followed along, you know that that's what I do on the day-to-day, because quite frankly, no one has a bigger impact on employee engagement and employee success than their manager. Period. End of conversation. Now, individuals have to take responsibility for their actions and their contributions, but how that's done is significantly impacted by that level of effectiveness, by how well that boss does their job of being an effective manager, being an effective leader, being an effective coach. And what's interesting is one of the greatest statistics that came out of this report is that bad bosses, when you look at that cultural archetype, as far as, hey, it's a bad boss being the archetype, 70% of employees have either said, hey, that it's somewhat or very common in their journey, they've had a bad boss. 70%. Hello, whoop, whoop, warning, danger ahead on productivity. So let's talk about this briefly today. This is kind of the setup. Now, I've reached out to Bamboo HR directly. I would love, sorry, I won't do that too often, but I'd love to bring someone on board from Bamboo HR to talk about their report, to talk specifically about the data, that what they put behind that. So I've reached out, and that would be an upcoming impact topic, right, on the Clutch Impact podcast of where we can go, what we can do, and truly be a clutch topic for where we're trying to go. But that impact of a bad boss is legit. And what I want to do is I kind of want to, in this process, is I want you to think about your work journey, right? So trying to make this relative, trying to make this germane to you, the listener, if you're listening in, which, by the way, thank you. Thank you for following along. If you find value in the Clutch Podcast, please, I'm doing everything that I can to broaden, to expand my horizons, and would love your share, your likes, your support, but more importantly, your subscription to future Clutch Podcasts editions that are going to be coming out. So talk a little bit more about what I've got on the horizon here once we get to the end of the show. But let's go back to this, your work journey. I want you to think back to, wow, who were those managers? Who were those leaders? Who were those folks that really made an impact on you, right? And we're coming off of this report that I've shared, right? Man, where are some of the not so good managers? Where are some of the folks that, at the end of the day, they leave your head scratching as to what they want you to do and how they want you to do that, right? And I think that's going to be critical, and I want to make sure we give some time to thinking about that, because the actual impact of that environment, that toxicity that can take place in the workplace, it's legit, right? So that data came out of the work that was done with Bamboo and creating their report and other data sources. Gallup has been researching this repeatedly for years. And again, over 2 million people that they continue to interview and talk to, and everyone, right? Their manager has the greatest and the biggest impact on that journey, on your work journey. So I want you to think about the times where it's like, whoa, hey, we can learn a lot from what we don't value or appreciate or find effective. And so I think it's important that we highlight in today's episode that we talk about, hey, what are some of the key learnings or even observations? Might not have been your boss, but it could have been a peer or a colleague or someone within your organization. What were some of the behaviors, some of the ways that they showed up, some of the ways that they managed or didn't manage, for lack of a better description, their people, your peers, your colleagues, your experience. And I think there's some power in learning that. And I want to challenge you that if you are going forward and you're going to look at hiring or promoting managers, right? If you're listening out there, whether you're a talent management or an HR professional, right? Or you're a recruiter, anyone that has an opportunity to put someone in a management position, but also that could be you, right? The audience is pretty broad spectrum right now. So whether you're an aspiring manager or leader, or you're hiring or affiliate, or heaven forbid, maybe you are a leader of leaders and you're coaching managers, really need to focus and pay attention on the behaviors that are either adding value and productivity to team performance, or those that are basically dipping in the bucket, are barriers to success, are barriers. What tools, what resources aren't present? That's the whole purpose and point of the Clutch podcast, is to put information, tools, and resources to help you and or your career and your business to be successful. So I want you to think about, it's kind of, the good, the bad, the ugly. Think about, hey, where's some of those not so good examples of management? Where are some of those not so good examples of that leadership, of that positively impacted performance, impacted your engagement level, impacted the engagement level of others? I think it's important to highlight those, to think about those, and to learn so that you don't repeat those. Or if you're managing others, so that you can correct or coach around those behaviors to put them towards more productive, more positive powers of engagement, powers of empowering others, right, to do the job that you've hired them to do versus micromanaging, right? And that comes up a lot in the management discussion, and it did in the report. So again, I hope that I can get the folks from Bamboo HR here on site. What I want to do real quick, just because it's timely and it's sensitive to tomorrow, which I'll talk about in a minute, I want to talk about what about the bosses that, just wow, have impacted your journey, have positively, truly valued you for the human being that you are, that you come to work each day, that you contribute, they develop you, they support you, they engage you, they hold you accountable. Yes, accountability, believe it or not, is something that employees crave. They want to know the boundaries and the borders for which they can succeed. But if there's never accountability, then there's never any way of knowing, am I on the right path? Am I growing? Am I developing? Because there's feedback. So if we have kind of the halo and the horns of this situation, I want to talk about the halo, right? I want you to think about those managers. I want you to think about those leaders that made a positive impact, that made a significant imprint, if you will, in your journey, in your professional career. Think about those behaviors. Think about what it is that they did for you that you put them in that halo category, right? Where that significant relational capacity was present, where you knew the trust level was high. And we can go deeper. This is we can do an entire day on this topic, but I'm just trying to give a snip and a bite. Why? Because it matters. What you do and how you show up as a manager and a leader each day, it matters. And so I want to kind of, again, the halo and the horns of this, but I want to focus more on the halo, because as we continue to dive forward, as we continue to progress and where we're going here with the Clutch podcast, with what we're doing on the show, I want to bring some resources that are positive to the conversation. For example, and one of the things that I think can be done very simple. So if you're a manager or you're a leader, you're out there, you're trying to navigate this world. I want to encourage you and challenge you to do some reflective analysis. How much time do you spend truly managing, developing, and engaging with your team members? How much time and energy, I'm speaking straight to the cam, how much time do you purposely put in that value piece of feedback? Do you hold the appropriate frequency and routine, regular one-on-ones, right? Now, you can do that to the extent where it's too much, and you can also do it where it's not enough. It also depends on the readiness level and the development level of each employee, because we're all different. We're dynamic. And I think that's the biggest challenge that gets faced, especially in some technical areas or other areas where promotions or opportunities for additional income or a retention, way to keep you in the organization, is to promote you into management. Well, guess what happens when that happens? You take someone, especially in a technical environment. I live in Space City, USA here in Houston, and it happens all the time, whether it's petrochem, NASA. Like, we take individuals who are the best of the best in their domain, and we promote them into management where they die, where they suffer, where they struggle, Why? Because you took them out of what they did the best, especially in the technical environments where there's something that is most likely very predictable, manageable, understand with logic and reason, and put them in charge of the exact opposite without any tools or resources to help. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 years, helping managers and leaders understand the envelope and the package of what does it mean to be a manager or leader? How do I show up on the day-to-day? How do I make meaningful connections? Because that's the critical component that is present. You got to have tools in your toolkit because managing people, we're the most dynamic, diverse creatures on the face of this planet. No one, two are the same. We're not the same. So you can't do the old school of, everybody in one shoe fits all bologna sandwiches, right? You've got to be able to connect on the one-to-one relationship and the one-to-one ratio of managing, leading, guiding, growing, developing, supporting, and most importantly, engaging your team. Engagement is the holy grail of the process. It is what matters most. And I hope your organization is assessing that. We'll talk more about employee engagement in future episodes. But I really want to highlight for you as you begin to dial in and hopefully process this content, whether you're following along on YouTube because you subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, do that. Subscribe to this channel. More information like this will be forthcoming, right? Or where you're getting your podcasts, where podcasts are available. And I'm working on that to get out to iTunes and all those other channels. It is a process. It is a journey where shift happened, and I'm having to shift some of my own perspectives. But back to the halos. The reason I bring this up and the reason I think this is critical today is I don't know if you know what October 16th is every year, right? October 16th, every year that we are here comes through, right? And guess what? It is Boss's Day. So I do this because one, timely, two, passionate about it, but three, one of the hardest, most thankless jobs that exists out there is to be a manager or a leader of others. It includes your teachers. That includes anyone who's responsible for the growth and the development of another human being. Now it's Boss's Day. I would prefer coach, leader, right? But I want to challenge you to think, and I'm going to do some mini reels tomorrow. So if you're following along, hop on over to Facebook. We'll talk about that in a minute and join the journey. But I think it's critical that on October 16th, and I hope that this is timely, I'm trying to get this out now, that you have an opportunity to think about, and if it's after the 16th, don't matter, thank a boss, thank a manager, thank a leader, thank a coach, thank a teacher that has made an impact in your life journey, whether it's personally, professionally, and or both, right? And I think it's crucial that when we have an opportunity to give thanks, we do so, right? I know Thanksgiving's next month in October, but this is a targeted date that if you look back on your professional career where you truly have an opportunity on a day dedicated just to that great boss, that person who made an impact in your life, that mentor, that coach, right? That encourager, that supporter, that leader. I really would encourage you to reach out, send them a text, send them an email, send them a goodie basket, whatever the case might be, whatever is appropriate, right, in your world, because I think they deserve a round of applause. We believe in recognizing individuals, recognizing the contributions, but also be detailed, be specific on what it is that you're thanking them for. Tomorrow, October 16th, on Boss's Day. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we brought this thing close to a close. What I would like to ask of you here on the show is if you're not already following along, please do so. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe so you get the latest and the greatest. I've also officially, as of yesterday, launched the Facebook page for the Clutch Podcast. So you can find the Clutch Podcast out on Facebook. Like it, share it, because sharing is caring. Again, this has been a mini short on the Clutch Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Klinger. Would love, love, love for you to go out. Would love for you to subscribe. Would love for you to do what needs to be done. Thank you for dialing in. Thank you for listening in today. And until next time, see ya.